What's up, my ninjas? Strident, and welcome to my new spot. I'm going to make this a regular thing on my channel where I discuss issues that collectors may face and just random things around the internet. I haven't come up with a name, so bear with me. Collectors have been uh, the source of a lot of, how do I put this, controversy in some ways. We've been kind of taken advantage of based on nostalgia, and there are a handful of us that we have problems with this, but then there's a whole bunch of people that are the vocal majority, I guess, that show why we are getting taken advantage of, why we get the shit that we get, why companies can get away with, the kind of underhanded tactics that they use. I mean, the other day I was talking to, and it might be in the current Joe Talk video that's coming up, or it might have already been posted, depending on when this gets up. Me, ODC, that's me, and Dar, Dumbass Reviewer, we were all talking about, pricing and how the pricing makes no sense. It's just greed. You hear a lot of talk about, what's the word? Man, it's late, so forgive me for the little blackouts, but inflation. You hear a lot of collectors throw around the word inflation, and they don't think about what that actually means. And I'm kind of amazed at the fact that all these years I've been hearing that phrase thrown around, and there's no collectors with economics degrees or the concept of economics or whatnot. And I've come across a handful of collectors that actually understand business structure and pricing and what fair pricing would be for what you're actually getting, and they're aware of the insane markups that companies like Hasbro will do with their own products in a secondary kind of way, like with the Collectors Club here. Now, I know this is an old post, but it has examples of everything that I complain about when it comes to collecting, and I just wanted to kind of point out a couple things so that you guys could see where I'm coming from. All right, so in this video, or in this post, this is an explanation for the Collectors Club. I want to say this was early in the cycle. It was 2012. I think it was fairly new at the time. Pursuit of Cobra had come and kind of was at the end, and this was going to be the kind of the alternative. Anyway, as usual, you get your explanation, all the things you need to do. You must be a member to take advantage of the figure subscription service. You can pay in full, or there can be 3 installments when you subscribe, or choose pay by installment. You'll be billed for the first 2 months shipments, and then during sometime in the second month, you'll be billed for the 3rd and 4th month shipments. It's so strange how they can just say, oh, sometime, The figures will be shipped in random order. These are all things that it's like, you're an adult. You're paying money. The cost here was $2.94 if paid in full, right? Plus whatever charges they add to it. Shipping, certain figures you had to pay for the figure by themselves. And they say something about single figures may be available in the club store after the subscriber figures ship, and they'll be priced at $32 per figure. Now, keep in mind that in a collector's club, it's all after retail. It's all stuff that has already hit retail, and they're just reusing that tooling and remolding stuff. And this is only for people, I'm explaining this for the people who don't know how this works, So anyway, they explain all these things, all these issues, if you pick a shipping service that doesn't include insurance, if you don't pick the insurance, we don't have any responsibility for replacement or loss, damage, misdirected orders, etc. Which, that's understandable. But the big thing is the figures will be received in random order. Figure pairings will not be announced, so if you don't mind, when you get your shipment each month, please do not go online and tell what you received. We want each shipment to be a surprise for as many members as possible. Really? This announcement is on General's Joe's. And you're really going to say some shit like that? Anyway, so some people, like this dude here, Joe Stewart, um, he says he's pissed at this. He's like, fuck that, 22 plus plus shipping per figure, and an extra 40 plus to be a member. No way, Mattel, bro. Then a whole bunch of people continue to explain why they think it should be more expensive, why the price makes sense. Small runs of figures cost more than larger runs. It should be no surprise that these figures are more expensive than retail. We've known that for a long time. But you are ignoring the fact that the tooling has already been paid for, and it has paid for itself multiple times. So these figures are practically being made for free. And they've marked them up like what? 3 times what the retail cost actually is. So in some cases 2 times what the retail cost is, and you have this guy has no problem with that. This guy over here points out that the club is due for some criticism because you know, their general handling is just not that great, and he gives some good points. The prices are fair, but they're forcing you to join the club, and that's not. Yeah, because if you want to get the figures, you have to join the club. And I understand what they're saying. If you're a Joe collector, you should be able to sign up and not have to pay. And then you could pay for the figures, or you could pay for a subscription and get all the figures in that subscription. It makes sense. He points out that the tooling hasn't aged well, and then a handful of the figures look great, but a lot of them use too much of the 25th era tooling. And it doesn't compare to the post Rise of Cobra and even older O-ring figures. He's right. And it definitely doesn't look good in comparison to the Pursuit of Cobra figures. He's right. Anyway, he gets attacked by a couple guys. How is forcing you to join the club unfair? It's a service of a semi-private club. Like, motherfucker, please. You clearly don't get it. Then he points out, he explains himself again. And this guy just keeps on going at him. You always have this where, you know, someone pops up, misunderstands what you said because they are the direct reason for the thing that you are complaining about or pointing out problems with, and they're offended by hearing that. Then a guy named Compulsive Collector. You already know what he's going to say. He's Compulsive Collector. He questions, how is it a bad deal to join the club when they send you a figure and you can turn around and sell it for more than your cost? You're one of those people. You're the reason why we have the problems we have. The one I want to go to is, let's see, this guy right here. Someone tells him that he was so far off base. And the guy says you should have expected essentially all the stuff that you complained about and blah, blah, blah. But he does point out something that I don't agree with. He says the last wave of any line is always terribly distributed. That's not true. It's just not true. There are examples of badly distributed lines and their final waves, but it's not a consistent thing. Because sometimes the final wave is figures that have already been laying in wait, and they're just being poured onto retail shelves. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, I don't agree with you on that. But anyway, Homeboy explains his point. He even breaks down the percentage of con prices for figures. He points out that you don't actually save anything. He points out that they told us $25 per figure. The cost would be that, which he already thought was high. And, you know, it possibly could have been less, which they did say somewhere in that range. He was hoping for much lower, but, you know, of course they're going to shoot for higher. And he's saying $300 for over a year. You save up $300 for over a year in case the plan of theirs works. It's not like the cost went up every week that they didn't get it going. They could have easily told us the price months ago. You know, these manufacturing costs have been negotiated long ago, which is true. And Hasbro's distribution and SDCC actions have nothing to do with the club, but collecting Joes is collecting Joes. Yeah, that all makes sense. He explains how if his ability to collect the Joes gets sourced by the actions of those supplying that hobby, then his desire to continue to collect will diminish. It's getting harder and harder to be a collector, and this is just another brick in the wall. We went from POC, which is Pursuit of Cobra, Wave 4, straight to 30th Wave 1. So if they had all these POC peg warmers, why wouldn't they have ordered 30th, right? I mean, they flooded the pegs with 30th Wave 2, then they had to clearance them out to make room for retaliation stuff. You guys remember all that? Stores, for the most part, they seem to know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. But some parts of the country don't get stuff at the same time. Like the Midwest gets things several months behind the coasts. Then he pointed out con prices go up, and he did the math. 2009, $280. 2010, $295. It's plus 5%. 2011, $305. It was 3% increase. 2012, it was a 13% increase. Does that seem like an expected jump to you? And there's people in this post that keep saying, oh, I expected it, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you guys just don't care. You're talking about this shit like you really knew what was going to happen, and you clearly just don't care. You're oblivious, and you don't care. And he points out that he made some of his points, his comments, because he was frustrated. And it makes sense. He still gets attacked. Still gets attacked. People are other people even jump in because they, agreed with Homeboy, and they're saying, they're trying to lessen the blow, but what they're saying makes perfect sense. And even Generals Joe's themselves pops on to kind of say that they've established all this stuff, They can't produce and leave them in stock, which defeats the purpose because these things are built to order. Kind of like what Figma does. It has nothing to do with being efficient. This has been the stated business plan all along. Unfortunately for what this guy is saying, if it's a business, it has to be efficient. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point if it's not going to be efficient? And they didn't communicate it because they knew it's not an efficient plan. Let's see. I gotta find the part that I like. Do you really think the club is going to pass up a chance to sell singles at $32 a pop plus a membership? And then, this guy says, yes, you don't see them selling you don't see them selling extra con sets, do you? They could well put them up on the site and make more money, but that would defeat the purpose of those sets. And then Homeboy goes in. And this is the part that I wanted to talk about. This is what inspired this video. So, he points out a article on toynewsy.com, toynewseye.com, and then he goes in to explain the whole thing. And I want you guys to read this. I'm just gonna point out bullet points, but he explains. This was in 2012, mind you. Okay, and he points out how Hasbro slowly increases prices. Everything is about $10, the carded figures are about $10. Now, this part right here, he breaks down everything with such accuracy that you can't argue his point. He says the club's not doing anyone a favor by producing this set, other than themselves. I've said this time and time again, and I've been banned on Facebook by Mattel for it. How can Hasbro and Mattel sell an item that the tooling cost has already been recouped for such a high price point when they're the company selling it? Understand what he's saying here. G.I. Joe belongs to Hasbro. They've already made figures with this tooling, so all they're doing is using leftover resources that have already paid for themselves 10 billion times over, and then they're charging way above what the retail price should be just because it's part of a club. It's like you're paying for this exclusivity that it doesn't really do anything. You know what I'm saying? He points out that there's no middleman structure in this sales. There's no middleman in this sales structure. The middleman markup is eliminated with this sales structure, which leaves you with the producer cost plus the club markup, which is a shitload of money. The club uses the excuse that they have to license the G.I. Joe product, but if that's the case, why do the G.I. Joe brand managers show off the product? So this means if Boss Fight Studios was hired to make their own line of Joes, it's Boss Fight Studios product, but they got the license from Hasbro, would Hasbro be running around showing off Boss Fight's product? No, because this would be a separate venture that's connected to them via license. That's how it really works. But he's breaking this down for people, and people don't get it. People still argue with him. He points out, you don't see Apple showing off a licensed Apple product at a trade show. No way, because they don't care, because they were paid a fee to use their name. Sure, they ensure that their name is associated with a product, with a quality product, but that's the extent of it. Meaning they'll tell you this thing exists, but they're not going to push it the way they would push their own product because it was licensed out. They were paid for use of their name, use of, elements of things they create, and that's it. That company needs to push it themselves with the help maybe of the bigger company. BotCon and the Joke Club, or JoeCon and the club, they've been taking advantage of nostalgic adults and pushing them into a generational collectors, adult collectors, who in turn buy the brands for their kids. And he breaks it down even further. And this is the part I love. This is the part that really inspired me to say something. I was actually about to go take a shower and go to sleep. It's like 1:35 in the morning. I got to be up at 8. And I saw this, or I got to be up at 7, I'm sorry, to be at work for 8. And this made me want to say something. He says, Hasbro charged $16 for Kim Arashikage at the summer cons. That's an extra $6.01 above the MSRP of a retail figure. Now I shouldn't say it like that, but the subscription service is going to charge $22.62 a figure. That's $12.63 above the MSRP of a retail figure. And then they have the BS charge. They have to BS charge you an extra $3 to use the credit card merchant services. Seriously? How can they charge you extra on top of the extra they're already charging you? You would think that shipping it'd have been an all-inclusive price. That would be a deal when you join a club. But these are all these things that people don't look at that show that they're trying to take advantage of you and your nostalgia. They're hijacking your nostalgia to get more money out of you. And it sucks because it doesn't have to be like that. I'll throw in some extra, numbers or some thought fuel. People talk about, what was the word? Inflation. And they don't pay attention. Inflation over the years, we'll say for toys, realistically. No matter of fact, we'll use, let's think of, I'll use some toys. Realistically, inflation, if you think about it, it's like a couple dollars a year since the thing comes out. Rarity would drive the price up when it comes to secondary selling on the market, but if you're just talking pure inflation, every year the cost of things in general goes up a handful, like $2 or sometimes a couple cents. You know what I mean? Like 50 cents, 60 cents, 75 cents, maybe $1. It goes up a certain, just look at like your Big Mac. I remember when in the late 90s when Big Macs and shit were like $3. You know what I mean? Or like it's like 2 something altogether. Or a fucking extra value meal actually was an extra value meal. You know what I mean? Not to say that you should eat McDonald's, it's shit, but I'm just explaining. Like I would come off of the train on my way to work, and I preferred getting like eating at the mom and pop spots. But occasionally, when you're in Grand Central Station, you got to run and grab something. So I would run to like the McDonald's area or run to the Wendy's area, and I would grab something quick. And I remember when I had first I first came home from college here. I went to college here in Columbus, Ohio. And then I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey. And I went to school and I worked a lot in Manhattan. I went to my first 2 years of college. That's my associate's degree. Was done in Manhattan at the School of Visual Arts. Um, when I would go to school, like I said, I would stop and grab things. And I remember when I first came back from Columbus, and I went back to the school just to see some of my teachers and some of my friends that were going after their 4-year degrees and stuff, and I saw the difference in pricing. And I know there's a difference, Midwest, whatever. But now the prices of these things here in Ohio and in New Jersey and New York, they're pretty similar now. This is inflation. Different places will take a different amount of time to catch up, but it's a couple dollars, couple cents. It's never like $50. Like by inflation, the fucking flag should never cost $1,000. It was $100 when it came out. If we're talking true inflation, it should be like 200, maybe $3. It couldn't be $1,000. You know what I mean? It should realistically it would be like $50. It's only been what, 30 years since it dropped. Something roughly. Its 30th anniversary was a couple years ago, so it's been like 30 something years. I think next year will be the 35th anniversary. So it's only been 35 years since A Real American Hero dropped. So why is it $1,000? It's because somebody was smart enough, devious but smart enough, to raise the price so high and say, oh, it's so rare, blah blah blah, and someone else was stupid enough to buy it for that price. So other people followed suit. It's America, and this is how things work. The same goes for things like the Defiant. While I got lucky, and I got mine for well under what it goes for in most condition on eBay, many of you are seeing them on eBay for $700, for $600, in kind of okay condition for $500. It also cost $100 when it came out. It should be like $150, $200. It's only been 35 years. You're only adding, maybe 75 cents the first 5 years, $1.75 the next couple of years. It's no way that you're going to get up to $700 in that time period. I don't care what anyone says. We're going by the simple math, And somehow there's this myth going around that so many people seem to believe that by inflation standards, it should be this astronomical price. How does the price for the, these older toys go up farther than the price for like, powerful older computers? You know what I'm saying? When you think about materials, you think of what it actually does, you think of the weight, all of that. How can some toys go for more than, higher end items that are, more expensive to make in the first place? How can they go for equal when the cost to build these things is way less than some of these other things? There's cars that didn't go up that high from 1985 to now. The price hasn't inflated as high as fucking some of these GI Joes. You know what I mean? And I know people are gonna say their shit and they're gonna be like, "What cars are you talking about?" Do the research and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's very simple. You think about the price of the average computer. When we were younger, a computer. I remember my dad and mom being really like kind of blown away that like a computer was like $300, because that was a lot of money back then. Think about it. And now computers do so much more, and the price for an average like kind of powerful computer would be like 1,000 something, 1,500, something like that. Even Macs, people hate Macs, and for an okay Mac, you would pay about $1,500. I mean, it'd be a little bit cheaper if you build a PC, but you get where I'm coming from. $300 back then, and then now you could buy like, maybe a Dell that's okay, fairly powerful, and you could spend $600-700. Why is it that the computer, which it's evolved so much faster, the quality of the materials being used to build this thing are higher end than the plastics used to build these toys, why is it they don't cost the prices that fucking toys cost? And there are people who are geeks about this stuff, and they're willing to pay whatever the price whatever the price that's asked. You know what I'm saying? Like Alienware. But even Alienwares don't go up to like 15,000, $30,000 a piece. I mean, there's a point that they go to, and maybe they do. I don't know. I shouldn't even bring up Alienware. It's been a long time since I've really even looked at Alienware. I just kind of write them off. But you know what I mean? There's a point that they stop because the cost doesn't fit what you're actually buying. They can only pull your chain so far before it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense, But anyway, he points out all this stuff. He points out shipping. If you're going to mail an item like a carded figure via UPS, USPS, you might pay $8.65. I pay $5, and that's priority mail, and it's done. That's to ship one item. Now, if a company and I am shipping 5,000 items, all the same size, shape, and weight, as a company, there is no way I would negotiate to ship 5,000 units for a total cost of $43,250. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. If someone in my company negotiated that deal, I'd have to let him go. I agree with him. I'd fire him on the spot because you don't understand. Usually, bulk, it cuts down the price per piece. You get what I'm saying? So you can't be asking for these astronomical shipping costs when I'm buying in bulk. You got to cut the price down. To ship 5,000 items, all the same size, shape, and weight via United States Postal Service is it's 0.44, 443 cents a unit. So you'd spend about $6,000 over $6,000 in total for 5,000 items. And you would add $1 for like the custom printed box, and the total shipping per unit is $1.43 per 5,000 units or items shipped at 14 ounces using the DNDC destination entry. And he gives you the calculation. You can go do this yourself. Any way you look at it, you're getting fucked to be a fan of a brand. And these brands are a drug, and we're the addicts, and I, for one, am going to rehab. Kudos. You are totally breaking it down with critical accuracy in plain English so that even the dumbest individual, even a child, could understand that there are problems with these things. He gets argued with. Still, where did you ever see Hasbro brand managers showing off their product? Anytime the FSS figures, anytime the club displayed the FSS figures, it was a club employee doing it at a club event, separate and apart from the official Hasbro product. It happened at NYCC last year, happened at JoeCon, it happened at SDCC. The club is not Hasbro. That's not true. I've read it and I've seen it even on Toy News Eye, where you had all kinds of folks from Hasbro and from the Collectors Club, together. It wasn't a private event. They did it at the Collectors Con in New Jersey a couple years back. He said, I made no such statement. What I showed is the pricing structure is disrespectful and downright greedy to the Joe collector. These clubs were supposed to be about the love of a brand and getting cool product, but all of them have turned into is a cash cow bleeding the fans. And to be honest, I have every fucking right to say how I feel about the matter. Feel free to show me where I alluded to wanting free toys, or were you just trying to be cute? Did my little economic lesson go over your head? And then, of course, you get the obligatory, so don't friggin' buy them. Fuck you. Then Compulsive Collector does his thing. Along with a lot of I don't know how stuff works or care to learn. How? When he explained everything in detail. This right here is the majority of what you get when you point out something about a beloved line. I get it with Marvel Legends. I got it when I pointed out the problems with the Icons line. I get it anytime I don't conform to what the mainstream thinks. And he points out, show me where I alluded to whatever that comment was. I don't know how stuff works or care to learn. And then he continues to say nothing really. He doesn't show out anything. You don't know or understand how manufacturing, licensing, or distribution works. And you're far too invested in complaining to pay attention to anyone who wastes his or her time explaining to you. I hope that helps. And it's funny because the dude just lets him talk, because it's like, how? How do you get to this from all of this? Jesus, I'm like losing my place. All this, where he gives you facts, gives you places to go double check his information. How do you arrive at that? This. How do you arrive at this? It hurts my brain to see that there are adults that think like this. Just because you don't have a problem with the things that he has a problem with, you don't have to diss the guy. You don't even have to say anything. You just continue buying the shit you want to buy. It's America. You can do what you want. You got money, spend it. But it doesn't change the facts that he pointed out. He really broke it down, and this guy right here is being extremely ignorant. And so is a whole lot of people. This guy's saying it's about what I expected. You didn't fucking expect the prices to be that ridiculous. I mean, $12 above what the price should be, the retail price? 12. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. For 25th anniversary figure parts being Frankenstein into newer versions of old characters, get the fuck out of here. The quality doesn't meet the price. So, I'm just like, this is one of those things where you see that a lot of people just don't get it. They just don't understand what it is that they're investing in. They don't understand that their nostalgia is actually being held hostage, and that's what's allowing them to ignore all these all these points, these prices, all these areas of difficulty. God, I keep throwing out random words. All these price. Wow, it is late. I'm sorry. It's about to be 2:00. Shit. But I was inspired to say all this, and I apologize for the if anyone's offended that I just used the fucking information as it is. But you could go on this. I could have given you a link, and you could go on there and just read the rest of this. And I will include the link so you can check it out. I love Generals Joe's. I dig them more than His Tank, even though some of the same people from His Tank usually pop up on here. But I hate the fact that we have to go through all this crap where people want to fight and argue about what makes more sense, when you're using facts. A lot of companies are taking advantage of the fans. Third-party companies, look at Transformers and all their third-party figures. Some of those third-party figures, you could tell Hasbro has some kind of hand in it, otherwise those figures couldn't exist. They're too close to copyright infringement. Yeah, they changed the name, but if the figure looks exactly like their product, they can definitely ask for it to be taken off the market. Clearly, some kind of deal is being made, which is what allows these companies to stay where they are. And I know they're going to say there isn't any, behind-the-scenes deal. But, I mean, when was the last time you saw Batman sold by someone else and there was no deal? You can go to a con and someone could draw Batman for you, but he can't make a whole comic and have the bat symbol, refer to the characters by name, or not, but just draw them exactly as they are and then charge you the same price, and print them and do all that. You can't do that. So, if you don't get it, I don't know what to tell you, but I think something has to be said about the way that we are being handled when it comes to our nostalgia being hijacked. It has to be, something has to be said, because it's not right. It shouldn't be like that. Just doesn't make sense, you know? I mean, I guess it makes sense in a devious kind of way. Someone sees the opportunity to make a shitload of money off of people, consumers who don't pay attention to what they're really being involved with. So, you know, they just take advantage. So I guess that makes sense, you know what I'm saying? But we should be smarter than this. How could you be collecting something for over 30 years and not see that there's a problem? There was one part in here where someone mentioned that was it in this? It might have been in another post, but someone mentioned figures costing at one point costing $2.99, and this one guy is like, "When the hell did they cost $2.99?" And I'm saying to myself, dude, like if you were collecting figures like Joe's back in the day, then you would know when they cost $2.99. He's talking about the good old days when we were kids, you know? So, I don't know. It just, it's amazing to me, you know? It's just amazing that this is the world we live in, and this is the type of folks that, you know, make up the collecting base. Oh yeah, here it is. At one time, Joe's had a MSRP of $2.99. You lost me there. Are you fucking serious? What are you, 5? You don't remember that shit? Crank up your Tin Lizzie and drive 10 miles to the nearest Piggly Wiggly to buy them? Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I don't know. Um, he says, I don't think anyone is going after these because they're such a steal. It's about something else entirely. Okay, fill us in. We understand there's nostalgia, but getting bent over and screwed with an ashy dick is just not smart. You want to take all that damage just because? The dude above mentions that if he had an $80,000 a year IT job, then this would be dope. You know, this would be awesome. That's the way he could justify the kind of cost they're asking. You know, almost $300 for figures to ship, possibly by Christmas. More than likely, much later than that, and to get them random. I mean, there's too much like room for, you know, error. There's too much waiting. There's too much for the price point. The shit should be figured out, and it should be a definite thing, you know. But you got these guys like this homeboy right here who want to talk shit. He says, I don't have anywhere near an 80K job either, but I'm happy to cough up the cash, not just to get these figures, but to also build an outlet for figures that we would otherwise not get. Are you fucking serious? When you compare them to the figures that we get in retail, what are you getting that's so special? Getting the same shit repackaged and molded or whatever, recast. That's not, you're not really getting something awesome. And looking at the quality of most of those figures, at the Collectors Club over the years, it just hasn't done that well, you know? So, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those things that people need to pay attention to. And, you know, if you get the opportunity to jump in on one of these conversations, throw more truth out there and less of the I feel. Give them more factual information, even if it's generalized, like what I was explaining with inflation. Throw out those general facts and then give them places to check this shit. I mean, I can even add that to this video, and I'm gonna do that. This is the U.S. inflation calculator. It's on usinflationcalculator.com. You guys can check it out. If in 1980 you spent $100, in 2016 the same item should cost $291.55. Didn't I explain something very similar to that? I'm telling you, people don't get it. How could the fucking flag be over $1,000 if this is the rate that we're looking at? It doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? And then think about this. 1980, we're saying, something cost $2.99. There's no way it can ever go for $50 right now, even if it's rare. It's $8.78 F72, which is why Pursuit of Cobra figures were like $6 when they came out, you know, $7 or so. It was about the right amount. They adjusted it because it's a brand and they can upsell it a little bit. But like, you've been getting screwed all this time and people just don't pay attention to this. It's frustrating because, you know, I noticed this. It's like the veil was lifted from my eyes to some degree. And when I point this shit out, I have asshats telling me shit like it takes 12 figures to pay, the tooling from 12 figures to pay for one figure. Are you fucking kidding me? That doesn't even make sense. It could take $12. It take $1,200 to create some of the, you know, the molds and all the cast, whatever, to the molds to pour the casts. Jesus Christ. But it's not going to be 12 separate figures with 12 separate sets of molds that cost $1,000+ a piece to pay for the tooling of one fucking figure. What kind of sense does that make? And there's a dude with a blog who knows people in the toy industry that's spreading that kind of bullshit on other, you know, sites and other forums and shit. People need more information, you know? $2.99 in 1980. You know, matter of fact, let me be a little bit more accurate. I'll put 1984. It's even less. Come on, guys. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times people act like what I'm saying is some radical craziness with no type of truth to it, but this is pure truth right here. The percentage is right here. The math is being done for us right here. This is one of the things the internet is definitely good at giving you is calculations, because there's a lot of people who create their algorithms and their programs and they post them up on the internet so they can get some kind of notice or they can help people. And this right here explains a lot. So, you know, the next time you go on a forum and someone tells you, you know, adjust for inflation, and, you know, that's why I can charge you $50 for this Marvel Legend that was created in 2011 and was $8 in 2011. You know what I mean? It's fucking ridiculous. 2011, $8, and you're gonna laugh at what it's gonna cost now. $8.54, 54 cents. Come on, this is what I'm saying to you guys. And I said it in the beginning of this video when I was explaining inflation in layman's terms with loose figures, and it's dead on the money. Inflation, it's not hundreds of dollars a year. It's not $20 a year. It's a couple cents each year, and that change builds up over time. It's not like, you know, this year the inflation rate was like 10 times the inflation rate last year. Come on, guys. And the dollar has been fluctuating. It's been up, you know, like decent, and then it's been lower, and most of the time it's been lower. So I don't know. And when it's up, it's like 2% or some shit. So just, you know, think about this when you see the pricing for these figures. When you go on eBay and folks are trying to ask you for $38 for a fucking 25th anniversary figure, and you're seeing 50 of them online. Think about it. You know, is the figure really that good that you're gonna pay what, 6 times the price? You know, or 5 times the price? Like, really? Come on, guys. We're all so much smarter than this that none of this shit should be happening. So anyway, it's late. This is my story and I'm sticking to it, and I don't give a fuck what anybody else says. People need to get the cold hard facts. They need to stop with the the fucking love novels that they like to write about, you know, how they feel about shit when reality is still reality. You know, yes, we escape and these toys are way into our imaginations, but come on, fam, for real. You're adults. There is a side of us that has to use some kind of logic, you know? When we tell our kids that something they want is unrealistic, how can we turn around and spend a fucking G on a toy that should only cost, based on inflation, maybe $3.50? How can you spend a G on that shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense. And it's been going on for so long that so many of you have never stopped to think Does this price make sense? You know, and a lot of people aren't honest enough to go back and use this as their guideline for the prices that they're going to sell things for. But the proof is here. So when I'm saying to you that, you know, I'm not paying that price, it's because I figured out that, like, the shit's way overpriced. Way overpriced. And I get it, it's America. Everybody's going to do what they can to make a profit. But you can make a profit without ripping off your people. I mean, look at this. $8 in 2011. And Marvel Legends go upwards from $25 to $50 a pop. Are you fucking kidding me? And this is on the secondary market. Nowadays, they even cost twice what they cost back then. And you're seeing this is what it should cost. So the 2 times the price is for all the other charges that might be involved, which there can't be that many because Hasbro owns their factories. But, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt. It costs twice as much. Okay, fine. When you're selling it on the secondary market, it's going to cost 4 times as much, 5 times as much. Why? You paid the regular amount for them. Why should you be paying more? You know? So anyway, like I said, that's it for me. You guys have been great. This is my story, and I'm fucking sticking to it. You guys should too. I will see you on the next video. You know, I'm trying to preach the truth to the youth. Peace outside.